The unfortunate thing is that not everyone is intending on, making it difficult for me being Black. It's just that there are just unaware issues and sometimes unconscious biases, even conscious biases, that have presented that. Now, as a African American leader and a professional, a lot of the things that I've had to face is really where I started. There's a high population of African Americans who are not privileged or have the benefit of starting in a place where they were given the advantages of knowing how to navigate the professional environment. So you're pretty much learning on the job. You try certain things, it doesn't work, you try again, and then you hit the glass ceiling where there's a ambiguous nature of what do I do to become successful? So I start mirroring what I see, which may not necessarily position me in the best light. So it's almost like starting a race where you are ahead of me 4 laps in the relay and we're running at the same speed. It's very difficult for me to ever catch up to you, right? That's contextually the nature of it. The other aspects are that because the power of the ability to make decisions, hire, fire, promote, lies within the majority of the white American environment, and with the lack of representation for African Americans, it's very difficult to have representative leadership as an African American, bringing awareness to the fact that it doesn't matter what school you come from. It really matters, are you able to do the job, right? So naturally, I've seen across all the companies I've worked with, I'm not pointing out any specific company, but of all the companies I've worked with, and I've worked with many companies globally, there is a tendency to hire like me, a person who has the skill sets I have, a person who I'm comfortable with, a person who is malleable and coachable, a person who I could trust, where they will have my best interest. And that's natural from a human nature. However, what that does is it limits the focus on the opportunity and the pipeline for minorities, especially in African Americans, to be sourced from some of the second and third tier schools. For example, I rarely see recruitment coming from HBCUs or say the local community college where a person didn't have a good start in life and they had to get a job coming out of high school to support their family and eventually having to go back to school in their late 20s or 30s. So they're coming in as an adult and may not have the credentials up front. Now, that's from a sourcing standpoint, from an introduction into the workforce. Within the workforce, there are very little mentoring programs that allow minorities, especially African Americans, to have awareness of all the opportunities that exist. I have yet to be at a company where a high potential list doesn't exist. There's always a high potential list. And the challenge is leaders know there's a list. Everybody else don't know there's a list. The criteria to get on the list, it's usually hidden. And the goalpost moves where the criteria shifts. And it's about how you portray yourself likability as opposed to how do I even get into the list to be coached to be a potential future leader of the organization. And unless you build relationships with the people who know these things, it's very difficult for you to be able to know how to navigate. Now, as a minority in the working environment in corporate America, I've been fortunate where I've always had a person that is of not Black actually put their arms around me and say, hey, you got what it takes. Let me teach you something. So I've been fortunate, and I've been fortunate in my career to be able to navigate the corporate environment, which is why I'm passionate about giving back. But the thing that I've noticed is from a minority status, unless you have those relationships, or culturally, if you're not taught to just go out and build those relationships, because typically folks from another race are folks who've done bad things to you, so there's a lack of trust. The conflict and the conundrum is just the cultural norms are bumping up against the corporate norms, and they're diametrically opposed, which causes this internal friction that is very difficult to articulate in words, but I know it exists. And that in itself creates this paradox for minorities, where trying to navigate among all the barriers to promotability and success in the workplace, it exists even more so at the senior leader level.